You're watching Lion AR on FREAKEMTV. Freakem, baby. Freakem, baby. Freakem, baby.
FREAKEMTV here with STEVEBUNCE, the man behind all the men. When it comes to, being a pundit, this is the man I've been watching for years. Finally got to interview myself. How's it going, Steve?
It's going really well. Nice to be in Birmingham, surrounded by real fight people on a night of what's real fights. Might not appeal to everybody in the fight game, but people that like following real fights. How about this? 6 fights, and I think they're just about 50-50. I've got some guys I fancy more in 1 or 2 of them, but they're still 50-50. I can't hand on heart tell you the 6 winners of 6 fights. When was the last time, and this is a challenge to any of your viewers, when was the last time there were 6 fights, title fights, on a bill, and you couldn't at least name 2 of the winners, guaranteed? I can't think of 6.
It's true.
Never.
I mean, to be fair, it's like it's a very good card. It's well.
It's an old school card. It's an old school card.
It is. And you've been in the game for a long, long time. You've seen boxing change over many years that you've been in the game. Not that you look anything near your age, mate.
Thank you, man.
But seriously, where do you think boxing is now to where it was like maybe 15, 20 years ago?
Well, it's bigger than ever. And some of the people I work with, men of 50, 55 and 60, they look at me like I'm mad when I say that. It's bigger than ever. Just look at the stats. Just look at the amount of shows every Saturday. 6 and 7 across Britain, with 50 and 60, 70 sometimes fights. 140 boxers getting a living on one night. That's unbelievable. And that's every single Saturday night. We've never had that when I started writing about boxing in the early 80s. We never had that in the 90s. We might have had bigger fighters. Nassim, Lennox, Chris Eubank Sr., Nigel Benn. We might have had great fighters in the 80s, in the 90s, in the last 15 years, Calzaghe, Hatton and Froch. But right now, we've got 1,000 registered boxers. That hasn't happened in Great Britain since the early 50s. That's a fact. We've got more shows than we've ever had. We've got more kids making more money. We've got more fights on TV. And we've got more guys like you recording people like me talking about it than we've ever had.
Wow, what a personality. I mean, Steve, to be fair, your interviews are some of probably the best interviews I've seen. You've got personality, you've got that fire, you're just alive, like, I don't know, like Red Bull with the wings, you just bring the whole game. To be fair, we've got a big fight coming up, AJ v Ruiz too. The first one was an unexpected result. Obviously, he was a stand-in, and no one expected Ruiz to do that. The rematch, I still see psychological damage to Joshua. What's your review on that?
Psychological damage might be too strong, but I get where you're going with that. What you're saying is when you see Joshua, either stuff that we did last week in Sheffield 10 days ago, when you see Joshua, you don't see a guy who in your mind is completely recovered from what happened in the ring. So that could be classified as psychological damage. He's certainly carrying some scars from that fight, but I'd expect him to carry scars from that fight. If I saw Joshua 4 months after that fight, 2 weeks before the fight in Saudi, and I didn't sense from him that was still on his mind, I'd be worried. I want that fight to be on his mind. I want that to be at the front of his mind as he's walking out 15,000 people under those stars for that fight, which is going to be one of the richest fights in boxing history. I want him to have that in the back of his mind. I want him to be alert and sharp. I want him to have a bit of fear in him. I like my fighters to have a bit of fear. They don't admit it sometimes when they're boxing. When they retire, they tell you the truth. I like my fighters to have a little bit of edge. They need that edge.
I was looking at the figures for this fight, and Mike Tyson, when he came out and came out from the 3-year spin he did inside, he was on 105 million for a 6-fight contract with Don King. AJ is getting $85 million apparently for this one fight because he's got $1 billion deal. Wow.
I mean, as I said, the figures are out of sync. Of course, what someone might say who was 80 years of age, but Steve, if Muhammad Ali was fighting now, he'd be on a $5 billion deal. Well, he might be. If Tyson was fighting now, he'd be on a $3 billion deal. Well, he might be. But he's not, they're not, and all we can do is deal with the men we've got, and all we can do is pay them what the going rate is. If this fight flops financially, trust me, there'll be a clause in that contract where things can change. We hear he's getting 85 million. I've never seen 85 million in one place. I know that I've lifted $1 million once we were in Las Vegas.
No, that's your bank account, 85 million.
Yeah, I wish. I've lifted $1 million, you can do it, but you couldn't lift 85 million. So even if he's only making 25 million, we still live in amazing times. And whether or not you think Wilder and Joshua and Fury, whether you think they'd beat Ernie Shavers or Sonny Liston or Muhammad Ali or Joe Frazier, it doesn't make any difference. Right now, in their era, in their period, those are the best 3 and 4 and 5 heavyweights in the world. If they start fighting each other, imagine if we have 2 years of them all fighting each other. That'd be a golden period.
Awesome. All right, come on, talk to me. Your favourite all-time 2 heavyweights.
My favourite for all-time heavyweights, Muhammad Ali in the 60s, in the late 60s.
Yep.
The Ali in the 70s was probably easier on the eye, but boy, that was the 60s guy would have beaten him. Angelo Dundee tells you that, and Muhammad Ali admits that. That 60s heavyweight at the end, before he gets kicked out of boxing, that guy's unbelievable. And the early Mike Tyson. Those couple of years, man. I mean, you've got to watch them in awe. Now, I'm not overlooking Joe Louis, I'm not overlooking Lennox Lewis, but it's just a period. There's a 3-year period for Ali and about a 3-year period for Tyson. And those two guys together are just about as good as it gets.
Steve, you got some swag here, mate. Come on. You
I'm pouring it off, bro.
No, you got some swag. I like this. So tell me this.